I arrived home from the grocery store to find Harry sitting calmly on the living room couch, a suitcase packed beside him. My heart sank as he looked up at me, his expression devoid of emotion. "I'm leaving, Alice," he said flatly. "I've been seeing someone else. I'm done. Sign these." He thrust a stack of papers towards me. Divorce papers. I stared at him in disbelief, the grocery bags slipping from my trembling hands. "You can't be serious, Harry. We've been married for 35 years. His eyes narrowed. "It's over, Alice. I'm moving in with Marjorie." Marjorie? Our neighbor? The room started spinning as the weight of his betrayal hit me. How could he do this after everything we'd been through together? "But why?" I stammered, tears welling up. Was it something I did? "We can work through this, Harry. Please, let's talk." He shook his head, his jaw set. "There's nothing to discuss. I've made up my mind. Sign the papers, and we can make this clean." I sank into the armchair, clutching the divorce papers as sobs racked my body. Harry remained unmoved, his coldness cutting deeper than any knife. After decades of building a life together, of supporting his dreams and making sacrifices for our marriage, he was casting me aside like yesterday's trash. Flashes of our life together flickered through my mind. Our wedding day, the struggles of our early years, the joy of finally achieving stability. All those memories now tainted by his callous disregard. As the shock slowly gave way to anger, a newfound determination took root within me. I would not allow this man to strip me of my dignity. Not after everything I had endured and overcome. Wiping away my tears, I met his gaze with a steely resolve. "No, Harry, I won't just roll over and let you discard me like this." His brow furrowed in surprise at my sudden defiance. "Alice, don't make this harder than it needs to be." "Harder for who?" I shot back, my voice steadier than I expected. "You're the one who betrayed our vows, our family. You'll have to face the consequences." Harry opened his mouth to respond, but I held up a hand, cutting him off. "Save it. I don't want to hear your excuses or justifications. Just know this. I won't go down without a fight. You wanted to start over? Well, so will I, but on my own terms." With that, I gathered what little remained of my composure and strode out of the room, leaving Harry and his suitcase behind. A new chapter was beginning, one fueled by the burning embers of my shattered illusions and an unbreakable will to rise from the ashes, stronger than ever before. After that fateful night when Harry dropped the bombshell of his affair and impending departure, I found myself adrift, struggling to make sense of the past few decades of my life. How could I have been so blind to the cracks in our marriage? As the initial shock began to fade, memories from our earlier years together resurfaced, each one a bitter reminder of the sacrifices I had made for this man, for our family. I had retired early from my job as a high school English teacher, a career I had loved dearly, all to support Harry's dream of starting his own business. While he pursued his entrepreneurial ambitions, I became a housewife, tending to the domestic responsibilities that he so easily brushed aside. "Don't worry about the household stuff, Alice," he would say dismissively. "Focus on making sure dinner is ready when I get home from the office." Those first few years of my early retirement were some of the loneliest of my life. Gone were the daily interactions with colleagues and students that had once brought me such joy and fulfillment. Instead, my days were consumed with cleaning, cooking, and running errands, a far cry from the vibrant, purposeful existence I had once known. Whenever I dared to voice my restlessness or suggest taking up a new hobby, Harry's response was always the same, a condescending chuckle and a reminder that his business was the priority. "We can revisit your little hobbies once we're financially stable, dear," he would say with a patronizing pat on the shoulder. Those subtle put-downs and dismissals of my desires gradually chipped away at my sense of self-worth. I began to feel invisible, a mere supporting character in the story of Harry's life. "Sometimes I feel invisible, Liz," I confided in my childhood friend over coffee one afternoon. "Everything is about Harry's needs. It's like my own dreams and aspirations don't matter anymore." Liz, ever the voice of reason, squeezed my hand reassuringly. "Alice, you've made so many sacrifices for that man. Don't let him diminish your value like this. You're a strong, intelligent woman. Never forget that." Her words were a balm to my wounded spirit, but deep down I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that I had somehow failed as a wife, that my inability to meet Harry's every demand was the root cause of his disregard. Little did I know then that his disloyalty ran far deeper than I could have ever imagined. As the truth of his long-term affair with our neighbor Marjorie came to light, those memories took on a new, sickening hue. All those years of self-doubt and sacrifice, only to be cast aside like an old rag when a younger, more enticing option presented itself. The revelation was like a slap in the face, jolting me out of my complacent existence. I realized then that I had been living a lie, a carefully constructed facade orchestrated by Harry to keep me blind to his transgressions. No more. The time for meek acceptance was over. A fire ignited within me, a burning desire to reclaim the dignity and self-respect that he had so callously stripped away. If Harry wanted to discard our marriage like a worn-out garment, then I would ensure he faced the consequences of his actions, no matter how painful or messy the process might be. This was no longer just about salvaging our relationship. That ship had sailed long ago. This was about taking a stand, about proving to Harry, to myself, and to the world that I was no one's doormat. I was Alice, a woman whose strength and resilience had been forged in the fires of betrayal, and I was just getting started. If Harry's betrayal wasn't enough to contend with, my mother-in-law Rita's constant presence only added to the turmoil. That woman had made my life a living hell from the moment I married her precious son. "Alice, dear, can't you do anything right?" she would sneer during one of her frequent, unannounced visits. "Harry's shirts are always so wrinkled." I would bite my tongue, forcing a tight smile as I assured her that I did my best with the laundry. But it was never enough for Rita. No matter how spotless the house, how elaborate the meals, there was always something to criticize, some way to make me feel inadequate. Harry, of course, did nothing to defend me against his mother's relentless jabs. If anything, he seemed to revel in her doting affection, basking in her approval like a spoiled child. "Mother knows best, Alice," he would say with a smug grin. "You should listen to her advice more often." I wanted so desperately to be accepted by Rita, to finally earn her respect and approval. I deluded myself into thinking that if I could just be the perfect wife and daughter-in-law, she would eventually come around. Foolish, naive me. During one particularly tense visit, Rita had taken it upon herself to rearrange the entire kitchen while I was out running errands. When I returned home, she greeted me with a look of utter disdain. "Honestly, Alice, how can you find anything in this mess?" she clucked, gesturing to the cupboards and drawers she had upended. "I've reorganized everything for you. You're welcome." I stared at the chaos she had created, my carefully organized system now in disarray. Anger and frustration bubbled up inside me, but I swallowed it down, forcing a polite, "Thank you, Rita. That was very thoughtful of you." Her lips pursed in a thin, disapproving line. "Well, don't just stand there, dear. This kitchen won't clean itself." And so I would spend the next few hours meticulously putting everything back in its rightful place, all while Rita looked on with a critical eye, offering a steady stream of unsolicited advice. "You really should consider hiring a maid, Alice. This house is always such a mess." "Have you thought about taking a cooking class? Harry deserves better than these bland meals. When are you going to lose that extra weight, dear? You've let yourself go since the wedding." Each barb was like a tiny dagger, chipping away at my already fragile self-esteem. But I endured it all, convincing myself that it was the price I had to pay for keeping the peace in our family. Little did I know that Rita's true loyalties lay not with me, but with her precious son, the son who could do no wrong in her eyes, even as he was carrying on a sordid affair behind my back. As the truth of Harry's deception came to light, I realized with sickening clarity that Rita had known all along. She had turned a blind eye to his infidelity, perhaps even encouraged it in her twisted way. The revelation was like a slap in the face, finally snapping me out of the delusion that I could ever win this woman's approval or affection. All those years of enduring her cruelty, of sacrificing my own dignity in the hopes of appeasing her, were for naught. But as the anger and hurt threatened to consume me, a newfound resolve took root. I was done being the docile, obedient daughter-in-law. It was time for Rita to face the consequences of her actions, to see the true monster she had enabled in her own son. If she thought she could continue to belittle and undermine me, she had another thing coming. This time, I would be the one calling the shots, and neither she nor Harry would be able to stop me from exposing their web of lies and deceit. The gloves were off, and I was just getting started. The revelation of Harry's affair hit me like a ton of bricks, leaving me reeling and gasping for air. How could I have been so blind, so trusting for all these years? He's been with her for years, Liz, I confided in my best friend through choked sobs. How did I miss this? Liz's arms enveloped me in a warm embrace as she gently stroked my hair. Oh, Alice, I'm so sorry. That bastard doesn't deserve your tears. But the tears kept flowing, a torrent of pent-up emotions finally breaking free. Anger, hurt, shame, they all swirled together in a toxic cocktail, leaving a bitter taste in my mouth. As the initial shock began to subside, flashes of memory assaulted me, each one a glaring neon sign that I had willfully ignored in my desperate bid to preserve the illusion of our happy marriage. The late nights at the office that stretched into early mornings, the sudden interest in hitting the gym and updating his wardrobe, the way his phone would buzz with texts, only for him to quickly silence it and tuck it away. I had chalked it all up to the stress of running his business, convincing myself that his distance was merely a phase, that the solid foundation of our love would see us through. Fool that I was. How could I have been so stupid, Liz? I asked, my voice thick with self-loathing. The signs were all there, and I chose to ignore them. Liz cupped my face in her hands, her gaze unwavering. Listen to me, Alice. This is not your fault. That lying snake is the one to blame, not you. Her words offered little solace as the full weight of Harry's deception crashed over me in waves. This wasn't just a fleeting indiscretion. This was a calculated, years-long betrayal of our vows, our family, our entire life together. And the person he had chosen to betray me with? Our neighbor, Marjorie, a woman nearly 2 decades my junior, with a body straight out of a fitness magazine and a perpetual smirk that now made my skin crawl. How many times had I welcomed that viper into our home, blissfully unaware of the sordid affair unfolding right under my nose? How many times had she and Harry exchanged knowing glances, reveling in their sick game, while I remained the oblivious punchline? The memories came flooding back, each one more damning than the last. Marjorie's overly familiar hugs that lingered a bit too long, the way Harry's eyes would follow her every movement whenever she was around, the hushed conversations that abruptly ceased the moment I entered the room. I felt sick, violated in the most profound way. My home, my sanctuary, had been tainted by their lies and indiscretions. Nowhere was safe from the stench of their betrayal. As the anger took root, it brought with it a newfound determination. I was done being the meek, trusting wife who turned a blind eye to the harsh realities unfolding before her. If Harry wanted to trade me in for a younger model, so be it, but he would damn well face the consequences of his actions. No more hiding, no more lies. It was time to expose their sordid affair for the whole world to see, and I would be the one holding the spotlight. Marjorie and Rita could try to spin it however they liked, but in the end, the truth would prevail. Harry's carefully constructed facade was about to come crumbling down, and I would be standing tall, emboldened by the ashes of his deceit. This was no longer just about salvaging my pride or getting revenge. This was a battle for my very soul, a fight to reclaim the self-worth and dignity that Harry had so callously stripped away. And I had no intention of losing. In the aftermath of Harry's devastating revelation, I found myself adrift, struggling to piece together the shattered fragments of my former life. The woman I had once been, the dutiful wife, the unwavering supporter, felt like a distant memory, a mere ghost haunting the halls of our home. As the initial shock and hurt began to subside, a newfound determination took root within me. I was done being the passive bystander in my own story. It was time to reclaim my power, to rebuild my life on my own terms. The first step was reconnecting with the parts of myself that I had sacrificed for the sake of my marriage. I reached out to old friends I had fallen out of touch with, reigniting bonds that had withered from neglect. Together we rediscovered our shared passions, book clubs, art classes, weekend hikes, all the simple joys I had forsaken in service of Harry's ambitions. With each outing, each rekindled connection, I felt layers of the old Alice being stripped away, revealing a stronger, more vibrant version of myself that I had long suppressed. Gone were the self-doubts and insecurities that Harry had so expertly cultivated. In their place blossomed a newfound confidence, a belief in my own worth that no man could ever diminish. As I immersed myself in this process of self-rediscovery, a plan began to take shape, a subtle, yet potent form of revenge against those who had so callously betrayed me. It started with a chance encounter with Rita, my wretched mother-in-law, at the local grocery store. As she prattled on about some inane family gossip, I couldn't help but notice the smug satisfaction in her eyes, as if she had won some twisted game that I hadn't even been aware we were playing. That's when the truth hit me like a sledgehammer. Rita had known about Harry's affair all along. More than that, she had likely encouraged it, seeing his dalliance with the much younger Marjorie as some sort of twisted validation of her son's virility. "How could you, Rita?" I demanded, cutting her off mid-sentence. "You knew he was cheating and you encouraged it?" Her eyes widened in surprise, but she quickly regained her composure, waving a dismissive hand. "Don't be so dramatic, Alice. Harry's a man with needs. Marjorie is simply better equipped to handle those needs than you are at this stage of life." I recoiled as if she had physically struck me, her words like acid burning through my skin. In that moment, the full depth of their deception became painfully clear. Not only had Harry betrayed me, but Rita, the woman who was supposed to be my family, had been complicit in his lies, enabling his infidelity under the guise of some twisted maternal loyalty. As the anger and hurt threatened to consume me, I forced myself to take a deep breath. Lashing out in a public setting would only give them the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. No, I needed to bide my time, to plot my revenge with surgical precision. And what better way to strike at the heart of their deception than to expose the truth before the entire family? The next big gathering was just a few weeks away, a reunion of sorts, where distant relatives from all corners would converge to celebrate our family's twisted version of togetherness. It would be the perfect stage to unleash the bombshell of Harry's betrayal, to strip away the carefully constructed facade he and Rita had so meticulously maintained. In the days leading up to the event, I could feel my resolve strengthening with each passing hour. This was about more than just getting even with Harry and Rita. This was about reclaiming my dignity, my self-worth, all the precious things they had tried so hard to strip away from me. As I looked in the mirror on the morning of the reunion, I saw a woman reborn. The meek, downtrodden Alice of the past was nowhere to be found. In her place stood a warrior, battle-tested and emboldened by the fires of betrayal. It was time to let the truth reign supreme, consequences be damned. Harry and Rita's web of lies was about to unravel, and I would be the one holding the scissors. The day of the family reunion dawned bright and clear, a cruel juxtaposition to the storm that was brewing within me. As I dressed for the occasion, smoothing the fabric of my crisp blouse, I could feel the weight of my impending revelation pressing down on me like a lead vest. But I was ready. More than ready. This was the moment I had been steeling myself for, the culmination of weeks spent meticulously plotting my revenge. The drive to the reunion site passed in a blur, my knuckles white as I gripped the steering wheel, rehearsing the words I would soon unleash upon my unsuspecting family. Harry and Rita thought they could sweep their betrayal under the rug, carry on as if nothing had happened. Well, they were in for a rude awakening. As I stepped out of the car and made my way towards the gathering, I could already sense the tension in the air. Harry and Marjorie were huddled together in a corner, no doubt reveling in their sordid affair now that it was out in the open. Rita, ever the matriarch, held court with a gaggle of relatives, her false airs of propriety sickening to behold. I took a deep breath, steeling my resolve. This was it. No more hiding, no more lies. "Harry," I called out, my voice trembling ever so slightly with the weight of controlled anger. "Why don't you tell everyone where you're really living now?" The words hung in the air like a lead balloon, and a hush fell over the gathering. All eyes turned towards us, confusion and curiosity etched on their faces. Harry's expression morphed from one of smug indifference to outright panic as the realization of what I was about to do dawned on him. "Alice, don't," he began, but I held up a hand, silencing him. "No, Harry, you don't get to sweep this under the rug anymore. These people deserve to know the truth about the kind of man you really are." I turned to address the assembled crowd, my voice growing stronger with each syllable. For years, Harry has been carrying on an affair with our neighbor Marjorie, and his own mother, Rita, knew about it the entire time. She even encouraged it, telling him it was better for him to be with a younger woman. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, followed by a torrent of hushed whispers and furtive glances. Harry and Rita stood frozen, their faces drained of color, as the truth they had so desperately tried to conceal was laid bare before their loved ones. "How could you, Harry?" one of his aunts cried out, her voice thick with emotion. "After everything Alice has done for you, for this family? And you, Rita?" another relative chimed in, shaking his head in disgust. "Encouraging your own son's infidelity? Have you no shame?" Rita opened her mouth to respond, no doubt prepared to unleash one of her signature deflections or excuses. But this time, no one was buying it. The veil had been lifted, and her true colors were on full display for all to see. As the accusations and recriminations swirled around us, I felt a profound sense of relief wash over me. The burden of carrying this secret, of shouldering the weight of their betrayal alone, had finally been lifted. And in its place blossomed a newfound sense of empowerment, a knowledge that I had taken control of my own narrative and emerged victorious. Harry and Rita could try to spin it however they liked, but the truth was out there now, reverberating through the family like a shockwave. They would never again be able to hide behind their carefully constructed facade of respectability. As for me, I had reclaimed my voice, my dignity, my very sense of self. The meek, downtrodden Alice of the past was gone, replaced by a woman who had stared down the demons of betrayal and emerged stronger, more resilient than ever before. This was just the beginning, the first step on a journey of healing and self-discovery that would shape the rest of my life. And as I looked around at the stunned faces of my family, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I would face them head-on, unbowed and unbroken. The shackles of my past had been shed, and a new chapter was just beginning. The aftermath of my explosive revelation at the family reunion was like a seismic shockwave rippling through our once tightly knit clan. In the days and weeks that followed, the fractures became increasingly apparent, with allegiances shifting and long-held loyalties called into question. For Harry and Rita, the fallout was swift and unforgiving. What had once been a position of respect and authority within the family quickly devolved into one of ostracization and disdain. Relatives who had once fawned over Harry's success now turned their backs, unable to reconcile the man they thought they knew with the unfaithful cat I had exposed. Rita, too, found herself increasingly isolated, her iron grip on the family's matriarchal reins loosening with each passing day. Her attempts to deflect blame and paint me as the hysterical, scorned woman were met with stony silence or outright rebuke. The veil had been lifted, and her true colors were on full display for all to see. As for me, the initial rush of vindication soon gave way to a profound sense of uncertainty. Having spent so many years suppressing my own desires, my own sense of self-worth, I found myself adrift in this newfound independence, unsure of how to navigate the uncharted waters ahead. It was Liz, my steadfast friend and confidant, who provided the anchor I so desperately needed. "You did the right thing, Alice," she reassured me as we sipped coffee one afternoon, her hand resting atop mine in a comforting gesture. They needed to know the truth, no matter how ugly it was. Her words were a balm to my troubled soul, a reminder that even in the midst of upheaval and uncertainty, I had reclaimed something far more precious than any material possession: my dignity, my voice, my power. Still, the residual pain of Harry's betrayal lingered like a persistent ache, flaring up in unexpected moments. I would catch glimpses of him around town, his once confident swagger now replaced by a hunched, furtive gait, and feel a pang of sadness for the man he had once been, the man I had so foolishly devoted my life to. A part of me still longed for closure, for some semblance of understanding as to how he could have so callously discarded our marriage, our family, for the fleeting thrill of an affair. But whenever he tried to reach out to initiate some form of contact or reconciliation, I rebuffed him, my anger and hurt still too raw to entertain his excuses or platitudes. "Not now, Harry," I would say, my voice firm and unwavering. "I'm not ready." And so we existed in this limbo, two ships passing in the night, each charting our own course through the wreckage of what had once been. He, adrift and rudderless, cast out from the very family he had once prioritized above all else, and me, slowly but surely finding my bearings, guided by an inner strength I had never known existed. It was during this period of transition and self-discovery that the true impact of my actions began to crystallize. What had started as a burning need for revenge, a desire to inflict the same pain and humiliation that Harry and Rita had so callously visited upon me, had blossomed into something far more profound and lasting. Emboldened by my newfound voice, I found myself sought out by other women who had endured similar betrayals, who had been beaten down and stripped of their self-worth by the very men who had sworn to love and cherish them. They looked to me as a beacon of hope, a living embodiment of the resilience and strength they so desperately craved, and so I did what any self-respecting woman in my position would do. I paid it forward, sharing my story and offering guidance and support to those still mired in the depths of their own personal hells. It started small, just a few of us gathering in each other's homes, swapping tales of woe and hard-won wisdom over cups of tea and plates of pastries. But word soon spread, and before long, our little support group had blossomed into a full-fledged movement, a sisterhood of survivors bound by the shared experience of betrayal and the unshakable resolve to rise above it. As I looked around the room during one of our meetings, taking in the faces of these remarkable women, I felt a profound sense of pride and purpose. We had all been through hell, enduring unimaginable pain and heartbreak at the hands of those who were supposed to cherish us most. Yet here we stood, battered but unbroken, our spirits forged in the fires of adversity. We've all been through hell, I said, raising my cup in a silent toast, but we're still standing, stronger than ever. A chorus of murmured assent rippled through the group, a shared acknowledgement of the long, arduous journey that had brought us to this point. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and setbacks that we could scarcely fathom, but we would face them head-on, bolstered by the bonds of sisterhood and the knowledge that our worth extended far beyond the transient affections of any one man. This was about more than just getting back at Harry and Rita, more than just settling some petty score. This was about reclaiming our power, our agency, our fundamental right to exist as complete, self-actualized beings, unbeholden to the whims and desires of those who sought to diminish us. And in that moment, as I looked around at the faces of my fellow warriors, I knew that no matter what lay ahead, we would emerge victorious. The shackles of our past had been shed, and a new dawn was breaking, a dawn ushered in by the indomitable spirit of women who had stared into the abyss and refused to blink. The months following my public exposure of Harry and Rita's betrayal were a whirlwind of change and self-discovery. As the dust settled and the initial shockwaves subsided, I found myself standing at a crossroads, faced with the daunting task of charting a new course for my life. The decision to leave our family home, the place that had once represented the bedrock of my existence, was not an easy one. But with each passing day spent within those walls, I was haunted by the ghosts of my former self, the meek, subservient wife who had sacrificed her dreams and aspirations on the altar of Harry's ambition. No, if I was to truly embrace this newfound lease on life, I needed to forge ahead on my own terms, unburdened by the weight of past traumas and regrets. And so, with Liz's unwavering support, I set out to find a place that could serve as the foundation for this next chapter. A cozy little apartment that, while modest, felt more like a sanctuary than the gilded cage I had once called home. As I unpacked my belongings, carefully arranging each item in its new resting place, I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of liberation. Gone were the trappings of my former life, the material excesses that Harry had so valued above all else. In their place stood the building blocks of a life truly my own, a blank canvas awaiting the brushstrokes of my newfound independence. It was during those early days of settling into my new abode that the seeds of a greater purpose began to take root. Through the grapevine of our close-knit community, word of my defiant stand against Harry and Rita's duplicity had spread like wildfire, igniting a spark of hope and inspiration in other women who had endured similar betrayals. At first, it was just a trickle, a few tentative knocks on my door, followed by hushed conversations over cups of tea as they unburdened themselves of their own harrowing tales of infidelity and emotional abuse. But soon that trickle became a steady stream, a veritable flood of kindred spirits seeking solace and guidance from one who had walked the same thorny path. And so I did what any self-respecting woman in my position would do. I opened my doors wide, inviting them in and offering a safe haven where they could share their stories without fear of judgment or reprisal. Before long, what had started as informal gatherings in my living room blossomed into a full-fledged support group, a sisterhood of survivors bound by the shared experience of betrayal and the unshakable resolve to rise above it. Our meetings became a sacred ritual, a chance to shed the masks we so often wore in public and bare our souls to those who truly understood the depths of our pain. We laughed together, cried together, and most importantly, we healed together, drawing strength from the bonds of sisterhood that transcended any one individual's plight. We've all been through hell, I would say, raising my cup in a silent toast as I looked around the room at the faces of these remarkable women. But we're still standing, stronger than ever. And it was true. Though our paths had been paved with heartache and suffering, we refused to be defined by the actions of the men who had sought to diminish us. Instead, we emerged from the ashes of our former lives like phoenixes, our spirits tempered by the fires of adversity, and our resolve forged in the crucible of betrayal. As the weeks turned to months, our little group continued to grow, attracting women from all walks of life who had been touched by the scourge of infidelity. And with each new member, the bonds of our sisterhood grew stronger, a tapestry woven from the threads of our shared experiences and collective resilience. It was during one of our meetings, as I looked around at the faces of these incredible women, that the true magnitude of my journey hit me with the force of a tidal wave. Here I was, a woman who had once been content to exist in the shadow of her husband, now standing at the helm of a movement dedicated to empowering and uplifting those who had endured similar trials. The transformation was complete. I was no longer defined by my marriage or the actions of the man who had so callously discarded me. Instead, I had become a beacon of hope, a living embodiment of the strength and resilience that lay dormant within each of us, waiting to be unleashed. As I reflected on the winding path that had brought me to this point, I felt a profound sense of pride and purpose. What had begun as a burning need for revenge, a desire to inflict the same pain and humiliation that Harry and Rita had visited upon me, had blossomed into something far greater, a mission to heal and uplift, to ensure that no woman ever again had to endure the soul-crushing anguish of betrayal alone. This was about more than just settling scores or exacting revenge. This was about reclaiming our power, our agency, our fundamental right to exist as complete, self-actualized beings, unbeholden to the whims and desires of those who sought to diminish us. And as I looked around at the faces of my fellow warriors, I knew that our journey was far from over. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges and setbacks, but we would face them head-on, bolstered by the bonds of sisterhood and the knowledge that our worth extended far beyond the transient affections of any one man. The shackles of our past had been shed, and a new dawn was breaking. A dawn ushered in by the indomitable spirit of women who had stared into the abyss and refused to blink.